Hello, everyone. Another Sunday and another live session. So, thank you very much for those of you who will join this session. And we can talk about the latest updates in the world of immigration. We will also talk about your questions, and I try to answer those questions. And we move forward with our session. So before everybody joins us, let me give you a couple of updates. Of course, the first and big one is the heartbreaking news from India. And the reason I'm bringing this up because the government of Canada decided to cancel direct flights from India to Canada. So that's really bad. Many of my clients are Indian citizens. And of course, other than feeling for them and their families and what is happening in India, like many other countries in the world, is the very fact that right now they cannot travel to Canada. So there are, of course, direct flights are already canceled for 30 days. And I suspect that this 30 days will be extended. And in terms of indirect flights, the situation is different because they can use indirect flights. However, they need to show when they are traveling to Canada, and this is important because many people promoted that this is a loophole. But the fact is that if you are traveling indirectly to Canada, then you need to show your COVID molecular test results from that destination. So for example, if you go to Hamburg and from Hamburg you are coming to Canada, then you need to show the test results that you have received in Hamburg. And that causes problem because it means that you probably will end up staying in Hamburg 2 or 3 days before you travel to Canada. And of course, because Canada has canceled the flights to Canada, I'm pretty sure many of those middle destinations will also cancel travels from India to their country. So it will be hard times for Indians and people from Pakistan, not just India, it's both India and Pakistan, for traveling to Canada, more travel restrictions. In terms of other people's travel restrictions, still the quarantine hotel is in place. Still 14-day quarantine is in place. So when you're traveling to Canada by air, you need to quarantine in a hotel up to 3 days. They will run a test at the airport, and then you go to a quarantine hotel and you wait for the test results. Usually you receive the test results the next day, but those quarantine hotels are super expensive. They are around $1,000 per night. However, as I mentioned, many people will only stay in those hotels for one night. And if their test results are negative, then they will go to another location that they have already identified with the immigration authorities to remain in those locations for another 13 days or 12 days, depending on the duration that you were in the quarantine hotel. So you need to remain in the hotel anyways for 13 days. I think I disconnected my electricity, so just give me a second before I lose my battery. Okay, so that's important because you need to make sure that you have a quarantine plan if you're coming to Canada. Now, many people who have visas to the United States, they are actually going to the United States and travel by car or even on foot to Canada. Because if you go, for example, to Buffalo, from Buffalo, you can take an Uber to Niagara Falls, or if you go directly to Niagara Falls in the United States, you can literally walk from a special bridge, Rainbow Bridge, to Canada by foot. And when you are doing that, when you are entering Canada by foot or entering Canada by car, not by an airplane, through the United States, then you don't need to go to quarantine hotel. And obviously that saves you a ton of money. So many people, and I have clients actually that they did that, that they are from other countries, they want to travel to Canada, but they don't want to pay the fees for quarantine hotel, they will travel to the United States, assuming they have a visa to the United States. And then from the United States, they travel to Canada. The good news is that right now, they don't need to go through the quarantine hotel process. The bad news is that it has caught the attention of the media, and media is heavily reporting this, and people have gotten sensitive towards this. So there is a slight chance, no news yet, but there is a chance that the government prevents this practice. And if that happens, then there will be huge trouble. Now, practically speaking, I don't know how they want to make that happen at the land borders, but for now, you're safe. If you have visa to the United States, that's an option that many people pursue. Now, what complications you could face, I don't know. I have actually a bunch of clients that they went to the United States and they managed to even get vaccinated. So now they have their vaccines and now they are traveling to Canada. So kind of the perk of going to the United States could be also receiving your vaccines. So in terms of the immigration, of course, the big news of the day that we discussed last week as well is the announcement by the government of Canada that they're going to accept 90,000 immigrants from inside Canada. As we move forward, we gather more information. I have probably, I mean, our company, not just me, we have probably received well over 200 messages from different people who want to hire us and or they have questions about the process. A majority of them, they do not qualify, but generally speaking, those interactions assisted us having a better understanding of what's going on, and of course, get some clients. And so if you are interested, I already have an article on settler.ca website. And wait a minute, why you cannot see the chats? Just give me a second. Oh, okay. So for some reason, I couldn't see the chats, but now I can. So settler.ca. So this is where you can go and find my article about the subject. By the way, I now see 2 people that they left messages. Hi to you both. I will answer all the questions. Don't worry. If you have posted a question, you don't need to repeat it. Just post it there. When I'm done with my report, I will answer your questions. So in terms of that 90,000 people, if you are an international student, then you need to have been graduated from the program, and you need to have the authorization to work in Canada, and you need to work in Canada. If you are a person who is on a work permit, an essential worker or a healthcare worker, then in the past 3 years, you need to show that you have worked at least 1 year in those fields. And then at the same time, you are also currently with a valid status in Canada, you hold a work permit and you are working. Remember that when they are saying valid status and work permit, there is a reason for that. For example, refugee claimants or those people who have a failed refugee case, they all have work permits in Canada. But those work permits, they do not constitute status in Canada. So in other words, they do not have, refugee claimants do not have valid status in Canada. They just are allowed to work in Canada. And that's why we cannot just simply apply for this program, unfortunately. So this does not cover refugee claimants in Canada because refugee claimants do not have a status in Canada. In terms of other immigration options, actually last week was a very silent week. We just had, as far as I remember, we had an invitation by the province of Manitoba. They invited around 200 something people, if I'm not mistaken, and to apply under Manitoba Immigrant Nominee Program or MPNP. And also we had some invitations by Saskatchewan about 300 and something people, again, under Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, or SINP. So these are the invitations that we had. And we will see those invitations reflect. Some of them are under express entry, so we'll see them reflect in the future express entry draws, but most of those applicants, they were just invited under pure PNP programs. So before I move forward and continue going through the news and explaining different immigration options to Canada, because we have some questions, let me answer these questions. And then if there are no more questions, I will come back and answer the rest of your I will talk about the rest of topics that I had in mind. So Sampath Rana Singh, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, is failed refugee, work as essential worker, can apply new PR system. So I already answered this question. Unfortunately, the answer is no, because you do not have valid status in Canada. The other one, but remember, this is a generic answer to your question. I don't know about the specifics of your own case. If you want consultation to see what's going on with your case, you can get in touch with us. But generally speaking, refugees, as I mentioned, they may not apply for this program. So the next one is from Godwin Obasi. Hello, sir. I applied for Canada Open Work Permit, but for the past 3 months, it has not been approved, still submitted in my Canada.ca account. So, well, again, I don't know about your case, so I cannot answer what's going on with your specific case. But generally speaking, unfortunately, the situation is not very good in terms of processing applications. So, for example, in India, we could see some progress, but now with the rise of the cases and the very fact that unfortunately Indians or Pakistani people cannot even travel to Canada, I highly doubt it if visa offices continue even processing the applications at the rate that they were processing the applications. So generally speaking, you may submit an application, but for how long it takes to process the application, nobody can predict it. And of course, it depends on where you are. If you are inside Canada, the processing is relatively quick. Usually when we submit an application inside Canada, in a week or so, we receive a temporary work permit for our clients. And then after that, about 2-3 months later, they will receive their actual work permit. But outside Canada, it's a guesswork because every country is different. For example, if an application is being processed in visa offices of Mexico, Mexican visa offices right now, they only process healthcare worker applications and agriculture applications. So only agriculture or farmers and healthcare. And if we submit an application other than those, unfortunately, they do not process them right now. They may process them in the future, but they may not process them now. For Nigeria, I don't know what's going on with Nigeria because David, which is our franchisee, he usually takes all the Nigerian cases for Parsai Immigration Services. So you can get in touch with him, book an appointment with him. And if you go on our contact information on the website, you see that we have the Toronto office and Edmonton office. So Edmonton is David. You can get in touch with him and ask your questions if you are from Nigeria. Of course, I also do accept Nigerian clients, but most of the Nigerian clients go directly to David. And he's also originally from Nigeria. So. Salam, sorry. Hi, sir. Why there is no any update on refugee applications that has been processing before COVID-19? Because simply put, this is not a priority for the government of Canada. It's very unfortunate, but it's not priority. Even for cases that we submit inside Canada, so we usually, I can tell you about Toronto. So in the past, before COVID-19, if somebody wanted to file for asylum inside Canada, If they hired us, we prepared their application. Of course, it could take a couple of weeks to prepare the application. But when we had the application, one of my staff with the applicant went to their office, IRCC office in Etobicoke, and we submitted the application in person in the morning. And believe it or not, by the evening, my client had their IFHB, or Interim Federal Healthcare documents. So they had the healthcare coverage, and in 3 weeks to 1.5 months, they already had received, most of them had received their work permits. But guess what? Nowadays, we have applications that we have submitted last July, and they have not received their work permits yet, even today, because the process has become online and it goes so slowly every step of the way, and it is very unfortunate. Next week, I have a hearing for one of my refugee clients, and we have been waiting for the processing since 2018. It's been over 3 years when we submitted the application to the day that we have the hearing date. And we only have a hearing date because I followed up with them multiple times, and eventually they gave me a hearing date. So even for those refugees that are inside Canada, everything goes very slowly. If you're outside Canada, unfortunately, resettlement of refugees to Canada is not a priority right now. It's always been a sensitive matter, but imagine during COVID-19, you try to resettle somebody to Canada. So it will go very slowly, I'm afraid. It's so unfortunate. Yeah, for outside Canada, the process is painstakingly slow. It's always been very slow, but now it's even worse. So Sean Lee said, good morning, Mr. Parsai. For the PR application, let's say if I receive a notice from IRCC to have the medical exam, does it mean that I have passed the security check? Thanks. No, Sean. Actually, security check commences at the same time, in most applications, not necessarily in all of them. In most applications, it commences when they issue medical examination. So security or background check, it basically consists of two major portions. One portion is being done directly by IRCC officers, and that's pretty straightforward because they have a huge database, and they easily enter the information of the person in that database, and they find out whether this person triggers anything. So if a person is already in IRCC's database and something triggers, they know that there might be issues. But if they don't find anything about that person in database, which could be, I don't know the exact process, but it could be a matter of minutes before they find out whether you have any issues in that front. But then the next step is to communicate the issue with Canada Spy Agency, or CSIS. And the security screening by CSIS could take days, weeks, months. So generally speaking, from the day that my clients receive in a standard format of a medical examination, not express entry system, because with express entry, you basically file your medical while you are submitting your documents. So that's a different story. But with a normal for express entry system, when my clients did their express entry, I had processings as low as just a few days to as high as 22 months. So, and that's 2 weeks to 22 months was the duration they spent on checking the background of my clients. So unfortunately, we cannot predict what would be the length of background check after medical. Now, I must emphasize that the situation is so complicated nowadays because sometimes you do upfront medical examination and you submit your medical examination before even they review your application, like express entry system. But even with that, when you see that the message says the medical examination passed, that's when the background check is also being started. And they usually are reluctant to say that they checked your eligibility at that moment. But usually when you pass your medical examination, it's very likely that you have also passed your eligibility. However, again, because the system has changed significantly and it's not as straightforward as it was in the past, it's a guess game. So just wait. The best answer is just wait and hope for the best, and hopefully people will eventually review your application and you will hear the good news. So Nidani asked, a foreign graduate startup visa stream. Can you help me with this? A1P. I think I have exact requirements at this program requirement. Yes, for sure. Actually, we can help you. And we have when they introduced that program, we had many discussions with the different organizations in Alberta about this program, and also with the Albertan government to get first-hand information, just to make sure that we do when we say that we are going to offer services in this program, we know what we are doing. And now we know what we are doing. And if you are interested, this is the link to my article. You can click that link, and there is actually a form on the bottom of that article. So please fill out that form, and here the link, direct link to the form. So please fill out that form. And then our team will review that form, and if you believe that you meet the requirements, somebody from our team will get in touch with you. We will collect more information from you, and we decide whether to move forward or not. And of course, we'll send you a proposal. If you like the proposal, we sign an agreement and we move forward. Okay, so it looks like that the questions are finished. So I just want to talk about a little bit about okay, I lost myself. Why is it like this today? I have a separate, and I don't know how to embed it. Okay. So in terms of the videos that I published last week, I would like to say a few words, because I think the last one especially was kind of important to me to mention it, because people sometimes take it very lightly. And the last video that I had was about the complexities of immigration to Canada. I know that people and the government of Canada even promotes that, you don't need representation, just fill out the forms yourself and submit the application. And I also understand that unfortunately, there are abuses by practitioners. Most of the practitioners that they abuse people are those practitioners that they are not licensed. So they are unauthorized practitioners, or UPs, or in the past we used to call them ghost consultants. So those people, they do not really have a license to represent clients. So if you are a representative contacting you to encourage you or help you with your immigration process to Canada, obviously make sure that they are licensed. So they need to be either the members of ICCRC or the members of a bar association in Canada. It means that they are lawyers, or in Ontario, they could be even paralegals, but make sure that they are licensed. That's super important. Without that license, you cannot actually accept their services, because they could face even jail time if they do that. So be careful with hiring a person. Despite that, even with some licensed practitioners, maybe some of the things that they will do are not correct. Maybe they are not competent to represent you. So it's very sensitive matter to find the right representative to assist you with your immigration process. Despite that, look, this is the immigration law. Look, this is not actually, this is an old version, by the way, but this is the immigration law. Of course, it consists of, this part is immigration law, this part immigration regulations, and these are the rules for federal court and for divisions of immigration hearings. But what you need to know that this is complicated. There are so many complexities with the laws. Since at least on Canley, there are more than 70,000 decisions by courts that are posted on Canley alone in the past 20 years. So we're talking about, roughly speaking, about 3,500 or court hearings per year regarding immigration. So immigration is a complex matter. And if you encounter complexities like misrepresentation or other issues similar to that, believe me, the amount of money that you need to spend to save yourself is a lot more than hiring a professional in the first place. Again, do your homework, find somebody that you trust them. I'm not saying just blindly hire someone, but make sure that you do not risk your life by just ignoring the realities of immigration to Canada. That's my 2 cents. I'm not persisting on doing that. You are not, by the way, obliged to do that. It means that you shouldn't, this is not a must to hire a representative, but I highly recommend it. Now, in terms of immigration hearings, like immigration division hearings, appeal hearings, refugee protection division, refugee appeal division, this is a very legal setting. And for those, I extremely recommend hiring a professional. And in fact, even if you go on IRB website, Immigration Refugee Board website, they also recommend hiring a professional, because even when you go to a hearing room, you need to know what kind of approach you need to have to the immigration authorities. The other issue that I discussed in my videos last week was about the, and I always lose these chats. I just want to make sure if there are more questions, answer them. So the other issue is about quitting your studies. So if you are here inside Canada and for some reason you quit studying in Canada, then you need to do something about it, because as soon as you quit your studies, first of all, your behavior is against a section of the regulations, is 220.1. And so that's very important, because when you are behaving in contrary to any sections of the law, then you could face inadmissibility to Canada. You could actually receive an exclusion order, and that exclusion order means that they will remove you from Canada and you cannot come back to Canada for 1 year. So you have to be very careful in terms of quitting your studies in Canada, because you could face significant consequences. However, this happens. So sometimes you quit your studies and you want to, change your ways. So you need to basically come clean with the immigration authorities. So when you apply for a new study permit, or you change your status from a student to a visitor, everything becomes clean. So I think it's a good idea. If you watch that video, I try to explain it from different angles, because if you don't know what to do, then you could face a removal from Canada. And right now, as I speak, I'm dealing with a case that he has removed an exclusion order. They are in the process of removing him from Canada, and he has hired me to help him. And it's kind of too late, because there is no easy way to protect him against removal from Canada. And this specific person actually originally from Nigeria, so I have Nigerian clients, but he's facing a very complicated situation because he has a Canadian child, and it's a mess. And he could basically stop this by getting in touch with an immigration consultant way before encountering all these problems, or an immigration lawyer. But again, quitting your studies is not a good thing in Canada, and it could cause trouble for you. Okay, so you have to be very careful. The other issue that I talked about last week in my videos was about, and you can of course watch those videos, was about the issue of Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada. So when you are inside Canada, there are times that you have issues with the immigration authorities, and sometimes you can resolve those issues through Immigration Refugee Board of Canada, which is an administrative tribunal. It means it's like a court, but it's less formal than a court. And it deals with different aspects of immigration. It has 4 divisions. The largest division is probably RPD, or Refugee Protection Division. It deals with those people who file for asylum or refugee either at the port of entry in Canada or inside Canada. So this is not about resettlement to Canada, it's about those people who are already inside Canada. And Refugee Protection Division decides whether a person could be granted refugee status or not. If they refuse that person, or if they approve it but the minister objects to that, then it goes to another division. It's called Refugee Appeal Division, that deals with the appeals of refugee cases. We also have the Immigration Division. Sometimes people face inadmissibility to Canada when they are inside Canada, and Immigration Division is the authority to issue removal orders for those people. And there will be hearing in most of the cases, and based on that hearing, they issue either a deportation order or an exclusion order or a departure order, and the person will be removed from Canada. Sometimes you can appeal those decisions, not all the time. The other issue is that Immigration Division deals with immigration detention. So unfortunately, sometimes people end up being detained under the Immigration Act, and when they are detained in a jail-like place, then there will be some hearings going on to review whether to keep that person in prison or release that person or release them conditionally. And for those situations, Immigration Division makes those decisions. And Immigration Appeal Division hears the appeals of the Immigration Division, and also appeals to certain issues like losing your permanent residency because of residency obligations, facing a removal order because you didn't meet the residency obligations, or a failed sponsorship application, etc. So again, that video briefly explains that. Of course, I have represented many clients to Immigration Appeal Division and a Refugee Protection Division. If you are facing any issues in those fronts, you can get in touch with us, but I hope nobody faces any issues. If there is an immigration matter that needs a court hearing, but it doesn't fall under the authority of Immigration Refugee Board of Canada, then you can file for judicial review, but for that you need to hire a lawyer. Now, I know a couple of lawyers. You can go get in touch with them through me, or you can just look them up and find a good lawyer. Okay, so these are about the videos that I made last week. And so I encourage you to go back and watch those videos. And of course, if you have any questions, you can post your questions below those videos and we will answer them. Okay, let me have a sip of my coffee. Okay, so the next question is from Yasi. Hi Parsai. I just got PR approved in 4.5 months. Congratulations, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your knowledge shared on the channel or lives. Can I continue using Ontario Health Card got during work permit? Is it still valid? Your work on the channel is so valuable. Please keep up the good work. Oh, thank you very much. First of all, a huge congratulations to you because of becoming a permanent resident, and also thank you very much for your positive feedback. So right now, because of COVID-19, even if you have an expired health card or OHIP card, as you mentioned, it's Ontario, you can still use it. But generally speaking, when you become a permanent resident of Canada, your social insurance number changes. So you need to get in touch with Service Canada, inform them that you have become a permanent resident of Canada. They will issue you a new SIN or social insurance number or SIN number. And then after receiving that, get in touch with Service Ontario and let them know that you are a permanent resident of Canada. And I assume that they will issue a new, again, that's outside the area of my practice, but I assume that they will issue you a new health card, or they might say continue using this health card until it is expired and then apply for a new one. But for SIN number, get in touch with Service Canada, and for your healthcare, get in touch with Service Ontario. So Godwin Obasi says, is Canada still approving visiting visa now? No, not really. Not really is not a good answer. So generally speaking, most visa offices do not process TRV applications. So the chances that we have a temporary resident visa being approved right now are very low. They don't process them, not they will refuse them. However, there are some options. For example, you can apply for a TRV. If you have a close family member, then you can get in touch with the immigration authorities and ask for an exemption. And then when they process the exemption, they process the temporary resident visa application at the same time. And if they approve your visa and approve the exemption, you can travel to Canada. And generally speaking, for approvals to Canada, you need to be, in most cases, you need to be either an immediate family member of a Canadian or permanent resident of Canada, or an extended family member. So just quickly reviewing, the immediate family members are these people. So if we have a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, the immediate family members in relationship to that citizen or permanent resident is their dependent child. And dependent child is somebody who is under 22 and not married, parents or step parents of that person, spouse or common law partner of that person, a dependent child of the dependent child of that person, or in other words, their grandchildren, and the guardian or tutor of that Canadian citizen. But guardian or tutor is somebody who has the custody of that Canadian child or permanent resident child. So these are the people who are considered immediate family member. If you are an immediate family member of a Canadian citizen, you need to apply for a temporary resident visa. And then after your application is submitted, you need to send a request to the immigration authorities via email. And then in that email, you request them an exemption to be by exemption. You don't really need an exemption, but because you don't have a visa, you need to go through that process. So they will review your visa application. If they approve the visa, then you will also be able to travel to Canada, obviously considering all the limitations that they do exist today. So we don't really know what will happen tomorrow. And then the other issue is about extended family members. For extended family members, it becomes a little bit complicated. So the extended family members include, in relationship to, again, a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada, their grandparents, their siblings, it means their brothers or sisters, or half brothers or half sisters, their grandchild of a non-dependent child. So not the dependent child of a dependent child, but the dependent child of a non-dependent child. And also non-dependent children, or your adult children, and the conjugal partner. So somebody that you are not common law partner or spouse, but you have been in relationship to each other for over 12 months, and also you have met each other in person. In those situations, if they do have a visa, then, or they are exempt from visas, for example, they do have an ETA, then they can go through the process of exemption by they need to fill out a special form called IMM 0006, and also they need to, that form needs to be notarized, they need to prepare a bunch of documents and then submit the application. If they also need a visa, they need to prepare a visa application, submit the visa application, and include that visa information into their application for an exemption from traveling to Canada. So this is the process for extended family members of Canadian citizens or permanent residents. Now, sometimes a person is here on a work permit or study permit. Can their family members join them here in Canada? So for a person who is here inside Canada with a work permit or with a study permit, or they are in those situations, they can have only their spouses, common law partners, and dependent children to join them. So for the spouses, common law partner, or dependent children, we call it uniting with a family member in Canada. The process for application is very similar to those other groups, but the difference is that we don't need to fill out the form IMM 0006, but we need to submit a bunch of documents to show that these family members want to join the foreign national who is currently inside Canada. But if those family members, again, they do not have a visa, we need to apply for a visa first and then include the information of the visa application in the request for exemption. And they will review those, and if they're convinced, they will issue the visa and will allow this family member to join their loved ones in Canada. Now, generally speaking, the processing time is 2 business weeks. That means most of the applications will be processed in 3 weeks to 4 weeks. But these are only for exemptions to travel to Canada. Okay. So the next one is Canada still okay. So the next one is from Hossein Iran Shahi. Can asylum seekers take driver's license in Canada? So the simple answer is yes. But having said that, driver's license is a provincial initiative. It's not a federal initiative. So in other words, it is up to the province what kind of requirements they need to issue a driver's license. And depending on the province, you need to refer to the provincial authorities to ask for it. But generally speaking, asylum seekers, even visitors in Canada, they could get their driver's license in Canada. So because driver's license is about the health and safety of Canadians. So if you have a driver's license and you're driving, it means that you know the rules and regulations of the roads in Canada and you won't put people in danger. So the provincial governments normally facilitate the issuance of driver's license in the province. I must emphasize this is outside of my area of practice. I'm just saying this because as a Canadian, not as an immigration consultant, because we don't deal with driver's licenses, but they do issue. And in many provinces in Canada, we also have a provincial ID. So if you are an asylum seeker inside Canada, and for some reason you cannot apply for a driver's license, in some cases you may apply for the provincial ID, and it's an ID card, government issued ID card that will help you, for example, to open a bank account and those kind of things. So the next question is from Rina Albuquerque. I hope I pronounced your name. Sorry if I didn't pronounce it properly. So Rina says, my sister-in-law is a Canadian citizen and is unmarried. So your sister-in-law, it means the sister of your husband. Okay, my question, sir, my question is, sorry, can she apply for PR for my son who is a minor? He is 15 years. So basically, you're talking about sponsoring a niece or a nephew. So in this case, sponsoring a nephew. So the simple answer is that a person who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident may sponsor any family member she wants if she is a completely lonely person. It means that she doesn't have a father, mother, spouse, or children, uh, and also grandparents. And if she has, uh, basically, she cannot sponsor her nephew. So that's the simple answer to that. But sometimes there are some humanitarian grounds that we could include those in sponsorship of nephews or nieces. And I have an article about this. Here is the link to that article. There's a video, I think I recorded a video about it as well. So you can read that article, you can watch the video for more details. And if you believe that there is a link on the bottom of the article, if you believe that there are significant humanitarian and compassionate considerations in your case, get in touch with us. You can probably have a consultation session with me. And based on that, we will find out if this is a possibility and we go ahead with the sponsorship. But generally speaking, in most cases, the answer is unfortunately no. Okay. So the next question is from Sean Lee. Thanks for your comprehensive reply to PR security check question. Just a follow-up, would every application go through the spy agency you mentioned? Yes, definitely. Every single application will be consulted with CSIS because they want to make sure that the person is not a threat to Canadian society, security threat. So actually RCMP gets involved directly or indirectly, CBSA gets involved directly or indirectly, but definitely CSIS will get involved directly to make sure that that person is not a threat. And that's something that some Canadians, they don't know. And they think that, oh, we are bringing these refugees in Canada or these immigrants in Canada, and that threatens our security. No, it won't, because every person who enters Canada legally as a refugee or as a permanent resident of Canada, that person has gone through the process of security screening and background checks. Okay, obviously, CSIS doesn't report to anybody, so that's why we don't know the exact process. They never publish it. Now, they had some level of openness in the past. They had actually an email address. We could contact them through that email address to follow up on our cases, but they even removed that. They had a special page on their website about the security screening. They removed that from their website. So they try to become even more secretive about it, but they definitely do it for every person. Now, there are ways that we can request CSIS to disclose information to us about a case, but generally speaking, because most of the issues that CSIS deal with, they are classified, they rarely respond, or if they respond, the documents are heavily redacted. And by redacted, you see they black out some areas, that's why they do. Okay, so the next one, where is it? Thanks for your comment. Oh, the next one is from Sub-Zero Mix and Mastering. Oh, Sub-Zero. Is it Sub-Zero or Sub-Zero? Okay, so is ghost update a good sign? A friend of mine who applied for work permit since last year hasn't gotten any update from IRCC, but he has seen a lot of ghost updates. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by ghost updates. I assume you mean that when he looks at the profile, you see that a few things have been done. Honestly, not necessarily. And the best way to find out if something has really been done on the application is to file for an ATIP. So we file for access to information and privacy, and we ask the immigration authorities to share the content of GCMS records about that case with us. And then based on that, we will basically find out whether something has been done on the application or not. Another option would be a direct request to the immigration authorities through IRCC web form. And when you submit those requests, then you can, they sometimes get back to you and they will tell you whether something has been done or not. And those items that you see on the ECAS system, they are not necessarily correct. I had a case that my client contacted me about 2 weeks ago, and they asked me what's going on with my case. I haven't heard anything from the immigration authorities yet. So before I sent them a request, I went on the ECAS system, the electronic client information system, to see what's going on with their application. And to my surprise, on the ECAS system, it was mentioned that my client has been approved permanent residence. And they even had mentioned a date, and that on February 2nd, you became a permanent resident of Canada, and we sent you the confirmation information. But that wasn't the case. I had never received an email from the immigration authorities. I called my client. She had not received an email from the immigration authorities. We hadn't received anything by mail. So guess what? I submitted a request to IRCC for an update. And when I submitted the request just a couple of days ago, IRCC replied back to me and said, no, that what you saw on our website was a mistake. This application is still in progress. So in other words, do not trust what you see that they post on your profile or on the ECAS system. At the end of the day, the actual communications are important with you. And that's why whenever you see something fishy is going on your profile, just go on IRCC web form and ask them questions. I have a video about IRCC web form. So I just type it here, IRCC web form. If you look up IRCC web form, you can see my article and my video. And also, if you want us to submit an ATIP request for your friend, just give them this link that I just posted. They can, we charge $100 US, and then we submit an ATIP request on behalf of the person. We review the ATIP request and we tell them what is the content of that GCMS report. So what's going on with their application? Let's put it this way. Okay. The next one is from Hossein Iran Shahi. So is the social number that asylum seekers get different from the normal one? What can asylum seekers not to do in Canada compared to someone with some type of residence permit? So basically, there are so many things that refugees, they cannot actually freely do. So social insurance number for refugees or temporary residents, like for example, for workers or students, those are temporary and they will eventually expire. And that's why when they become permanent residents, they need to contact Service Canada to make their social insurance number permanent. But in terms of what a refugee can do or cannot do, basically refugees are not allowed to do anything, but they are allowed to request for things. For example, they can request for a work permit. And as a humanitarian measure, the government will in fact issue a work permit for them. And then when they have the work permit, they can work in Canada legally without any issues. Or for example, they are not allowed to study in Canada. If they want to study in Canada, they need to apply for a study permit. And if the government issues the study permit, then they will be able to study in Canada. And for the study permit application, they need even to submit a request for basically But if they want to study, they need to get admission or acceptance letter from a designated learning institution before they can even apply for a study permit. So they face many limitations, but luckily Canada is not like other countries that they put people in, camps and those kind of things. So Mohammed Sohail, salam Mohammed. So the question is that how can you add your Canadian-born son to your application for permanent residence as protected persons from inside Canada? So simply put, a Canadian citizen is not part of an application because that Canadian citizen is already a Canadian citizen. Now, I don't know about your case. I cannot comment on your case. But generally speaking, when you are applying for immigration to Canada, or permanent residence in Canada, your children, your dependent children who are already Canadian citizens, they are not part of the application. Obviously, on forms such as IMM 5406, which talks about additional family information, we must mention the name of the children, but they are not part of the application. So in other words, we do not include them as part of the application, but we have to declare them. But when you declare them, they don't need to go through background checks. They don't need to do medical examination, nothing, because that child is already entitled to be a Canadian citizen. So this is a generic answer. I don't know about the specifics of your case, and I cannot comment on the specifics. So I think we are almost running out of time. So I start from the bottom for those people who haven't asked questions before, and then I come back if I have time to answer the rest of questions. So Manu Gold says, hi, sir, how important is it, the police clearance for the home support worker pilot program, if it was not submitted with the initial application, and will the application get rejected without it? Thanks. So generally speaking, when they say that we want a police certificate, you have to submit the police certificate. If you do not submit the police certificate, then they either return your package, the complete package, back to you. They say this is incomplete, or they will basically refuse the application. They rarely refuse the application. They just won't process the application. And it causes a huge amount of delay in the process. So that's why you have to make sure that if they are requesting for a police certificate, you submit a police certificate. Are there alternatives? Yes, the first one is just wait for your police certificate to arrive and then submit the application. Or if you are submitting, there are some alternatives. I don't want to go into the details of that. And again, I must emphasize, who was the question, Manu? I must emphasize that this does not constitute immigration advice because I don't know about the specifics of your case. But generally speaking, take police clearance very seriously. In fact, under express entry, for example, they easily refuse many of the applications just because of the express entry. I had somebody hired me that he had applied for a permanent residence and he submitted his police certificate from Denmark, but they refused his application. You know why? Because he had received his police certificate 3 days before leaving Denmark. And he didn't update his police certificate because he thought that I just got my police certificate before leaving Denmark. And the immigration authorities refused it because they said, what do we know? Maybe in those 3 days, you had some issues. So that's why you have to take police certificate issue very seriously. I never compromise on police certificate. Of course, there are tools for the times that we cannot have police certificates, but those tools are the tools that I make money with them. So I'm not going to share them here. Okay, so the other question is from RSB. Hello, sir. How does an EU passport holder who can enter via ETA as visitor for up to 6 months get a visitor record? So basically, when you are entering Canada at the port of entry with an ETA, if they allow you to remain in Canada for 6 months, they never issue a visitor record. Visitor record is for the time that there is a huge deviation from those 6 months stay. For example, when you're entering, they say, oh, no, wait a minute. We will allow you to remain in Canada only for 2 months. Then they issue a visitor record. Or maybe you are accompanying your spouse who has a work permit or a study permit. In that situation, if you do not intend to apply for an open work permit, you could ask for a visitor record. They will issue a visitor record that is equivalent to the length of the time that your spouse stays in Canada. So this is for port of entry. But when you are inside Canada, you're just like anybody else. Now, when you get closer to the 6 months of your stay in Canada, and if you want to stay, continue staying, you just apply for a visitor record online. It's a simple process. It's a form that you need to fill out. You need to include some documents that they make sure that you have enough financial support, etc., to remain in Canada. The processing fee is $100, and if they approve your application, you will receive a visitor record. Now, I have an article about the concept of visitor record. It's on my website. You can watch it. And if you want my team and I to help you with your visitor record application, by all means, get in touch with us. It's not an expensive process. So Sean Siddiqui says, hi, Al. I have been hearing that parental lottery program is closed. I am a family of 2 and would like to sponsor my mom under HNC. Do I really need to have a kid in order to support the application? So obviously I cannot comment on the specifics of your case, but what I can tell you is that generally speaking, the HNC consists of many elements, and one of those elements is the best interest of a child. And the best interest of a child, it doesn't mean the child of the sponsor. It could be the child of the person who is applying for permanent residence. It could be the child of your neighbor, if somehow they are connected with that application. So and that's only one element, because we look at the ties, we look at the establishment, we look at the hardship, we look at medical issues. So there are so many elements included in HNC applications. HNC is a very delicate kind of application. It's up to you, but I highly recommend that you hire somebody. Because without hiring somebody and applying for HNC, you will later regret it. The process of HNC is a complicated process. It's based on 2 major decisions by the Supreme Court of Canada, Baker versus Canada, and the most recent one, Kantasamy versus Canada. And there are some guidelines by Supreme Court of Canada and some guidelines for the immigration officers. We follow those guidelines and we submit the applications based on that. If we believe, so I do not accept any HNC application. I need to, in my opinion, see that there is merits in that application. Still, the success rate for HNC applications is roughly between 50 to 60%. So in other words, about 40 to 50% of HNC applications get refused. So you have to be very careful in terms of that. But in terms of the lottery system, so they are going to open it sometime in the future this year. I don't know when. And they are going to accept 30,000 applications under that program. That's what they promised last year. Now, if they back up from that promise, I don't know. So okay, so we already passed our 11 o'clock. So let me see if I missed any questions. So I saw that, Mohammed Sohail, I saw that. So how can somebody, this is from Hussein Iran Shahi, how can somebody understand that you are asylum seeker in Canada at job, college, or anywhere? It's first of all, this is the duty of the employer. So under Section 124 of the Immigration Act, any employer in Canada has the duty to do due diligence before hiring somebody. They have to ask for your documents. And when they receive your documents, they will find out that who you are. The same thing is with schools. They definitely ask for documents. And when they ask for documents, they find out that the person is an asylum seeker. So the next one is from Yossi, how to flag a TRV application to IRCC knows it's from an immediate family member or a PR. You mentioned applying an exemption. So basically, the simple answer is that when you're submitting the TRV application, you need to change the purpose of visit to other and enter COVID-19. But then later you communicate with them directly through an email, so they can locate it. So when I communicate with them, I mention the visa application number, the UCI of my client, and they know which application to look at. It's relatively easy to do that, but again, you have to be very careful to follow the protocols, whether you are applying for extended family member, immediate family member, or uniting with a foreign national in Canada. What kind of ID card can asylum seekers have? Is it accepted anywhere? I assume that migration agency takes your passport when you seek asylum. That's correct, Hossein. They will take away the passport, and in certain situations, they even take away other ID cards that the person has. Of course, before passing them to the immigration authorities, you may have a certified copies of those. So in case that you encounter problem, you can apply for other kind of documents. But you receive a work permit, you receive an IFHB, which is a letter, official letter about the situation of that person. But on top of that, as I mentioned, those ID cards depend on the policies of each province. So if the province issues the ID cards to asylum seekers, then they will receive ID cards. And this is beyond immigration. These are based on policies of each province. So CA says, I have Canadian citizenship. Great, congratulations. Yassi, okay, Shanli. If I book a consultation with you, would you review my case before meeting time so that I will be able to save to discuss specifics about my case in the meeting? So Shanli, some of them, majority of people who send me documents or they book a consultation session with me, they want to share everything at the session, but I don't mind if somebody email me their documents up front so I have an idea what's going on, and then during the session we'll review them. Okay, but remember that the consultation sessions, I do not fill out immigration forms during consultation sessions. This is not an option for replacing hiring me. I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot and lose thousands of dollars because of a consultation session. Consultation sessions is the fact to review your case and see what are your potential options. Of course, you don't have any obligation to hire us. After that, if you feel comfortable to hire us, you will hire us if there is a solution. And if you don't want to hire us, you don't need to hire us. Okay, thank you very much now we already have past 7 minutes of our time. Thank you very much for attending this session. Again, I will publish 3 videos per week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And also we have live sessions on YouTube every Sunday at 10 a.m. If you speak Farsi or Persian, I have live sessions on Instagram or our Instagram page in Farsi or Persian. And this is the handle of our Instagram page. So our Instagram page is more Persian, not English. But if you want to join us, I have live sessions at 10 a.m. EST or Toronto time every Friday on Instagram in Farsi, every Sunday in English on YouTube. And you can support us by visiting settler.ca, by purchasing my book, 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada. Just look at 88tips.ca for your purchasing options. See you next week. Bye now.